United States of America.
I vow to do everything in my power to ensure that all women and girls, even children, are forced to carry their pregnancies to term with or without their consent.
This is the inevitable result of market-based thinking when it comes to human life. I'll explain. The freer women become, the fewer children we have. It's constant, it's global, always happens, can be counted on. Here's the problem. We built an economic system based on the idea that the population would keep growing, because the powers that be assumed that how things were then are how things are always going to be. And I've noticed that people who think in terms of markets, who conceptualize everything in terms of economic strategy conditions, tend to think like this. They don't think long term. They think quarter to quarter. And they assume what's happening in Q1 is still going to be happening in Q3. Not necessarily. And instead of taking an honest look at the country 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when the birth rate was starting to decline, and recognize the trends, I mean, demographers knew about these trends. They know that the more liberated women are, the fewer children they have. That information was already available. It's a tale as old as time. Instead of coming up with a solution then to restructure the economy to account for the population no longer growing, they dragged their feet. System was working well for them. Short-term profits were fine. Just kick it down the road. Don't worry about it. And now they're panicking. So their solution is to re-enslave women. Whereas if they would have talked about this issue 25 years ago and maybe, I don't know, involved women in the conversation, we could have come up with a solution to mitigate the effects of a declining population, or at least a stagnant population, a population that wasn't growing. And we could have kept it stable if we'd have dealt with it back then. But no, that's short-term thinking. How things are now are how they're always going to be. And it doesn't matter whether how things are at the moment is good or bad. Markets fluctuate. The stock price one day isn't going to be the same stock price the next day. Sometimes it rises, sometimes it plummets. But this was very easy to see down the road. This was a very easy problem to spot. And if you would have thought about it and listened to leftists decades ago who were saying, hey, you know, the population's not going to grow anymore, so maybe we should restructure our social security system or whatever, do some things to mitigate that fact because no one's having 5 kids anymore. Instead of doing that, we decided to, if we just keep a certain amount of people poor, then we'll have enough babies. If we keep younger people dumb and don't talk to them about birth control, don't give them comprehensive sex education, they'll have babies in their 20s. But then something happened. This happened. Social media happened. And we all started sharing our stories. And the neurodivergent folks, the ADHDers and the autistic people, we started recognizing some patterns. And we did what is the most powerful thing that people, particularly women, can do. Nothing. You can't win this capitalist game. And if you think that you can win it, unless you're a billionaire or a Nepo baby, you are living in a delusional world. The only thing that every person can do is this. To the extent you can, based on your circumstances, don't participate. And the easiest way to not participate in the system is to not have children. So that's what people are doing, or rather, not doing. And this is actually the one thing I feel kind of optimistic about. I think they're going to try. They're going to try to re-enslave women. They're going to try really hard. But I think they're going to fail. Because as much as they think that this economy needs women in the kitchen, they need us in front of a laptop more. Because we're more than 50% of the workforce. They need a certain amount of women working. And with the amount of women they need working, they can only afford to spare so many of us. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of women are going to unalive as a result of them trying to re-enslave us. A lot of women and girls are going to get crushed beneath the wheel of them trying to re-enslave us. But they'll never do it. Because women, we're an insurgency. You know, it's like when we try to invade and occupy a country, and we try, we think, oh, we're America, we're superior military power. We should be able to, Afghanistan, Vietnam, even the Russians gave up in Afghanistan. We should have known back then. To quote one of my favorite comics, Kathleen Madigan, Russia, the people who tricked into a snowstorm, gave up in Afghanistan. Eventually, they were just like, pencils down, we can't do this. And they left. Because a rule of warfare is that an insurgent power will always outlast an invader. And our insurgency is our community of women. And they are the invaders. They're the big bad power that's coming into our communities and trying to control who we are and what we do. We will outlast them. Now, don't get me wrong. It'll be rough, but we will outlast them. Make no mistake.